Right, good morning everyone. What a lovely, amazing panel discussion and so appropriate for the discussion that I would like to have with you today. Thank you for that wonderful introduction as well. My name is Dr. Evette Rose and I'm here today to talk about how emotions impact pain and also our health. Now just very briefly, I'm going to explain to you how I got onto this journey, because if you had to tell me 17 years ago that I would be doing what I'm doing today, I think I would pass out. I was actually studying to become a crime scene investigator and a lawyer when my life took quite a drastic turn. Most of us, because most of us, thank you. Most of us we walk into personal development because there's something in our life that's not working for us. And it was exactly the same for me. I was struggling with anxiety. I was on heavy medication for depression. Testing. The microphone has emotions too, apparently. And I started to just deal with the symptoms. I didn't understand why I felt the way that I did. I didn't realize that my past at the time was playing a very big role in relationship to the depression and the anxiety that I was experiencing. I did not have the awareness to take that step back and to understand, to ask that extra question, but why? I was only thinking about what can I do next to not feel. And this is where my journey started with personal development. I actually started as Googling how to be happy because I didn't know where to start. And this was way back when I was still in corporate. I was working a 9 to 5 and just trying to cope and survive with my life. And what happened was I saw on Google, funny enough, that's where we go, right? This was way back in 2008, 2009, when we still had these clunky Dell computers. And I started seeing personal development work, breath work, and it blew my mind. How can something like this help me to feel and to change my life? Emotions is something that we live to avoid feeling. How many of us have set up our lives to not feel? Everything that we do every day is to not feel. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? But what's interesting is that emotions, what I didn't realize at the time, was the very gateway to my greatest breakthrough. I didn't have a good relationship with emotions. But emotions are there, I call it the GPS of the soul. It's there to help you to live your greatest life, to love deeply, and to be happy. But it can also make you feel very strong, negative emotions. We're negative biased. We don't like to feel that, right? So we try to move away from it. So I really had to change my relationship with emotions and understand that it's actually going to be my doorway to change. Can we get this to work? I'm the first one here, so I'm testing the equipment for you. So for all the next speakers, you're welcome. Is it working? No? Can I go? No? No? It's okay, I memorized my speech. Never rely on a presentation. I've learned that from many conferences. So, are we moving? Let's see. Okay. Anyway, so there we go. There we go, okay. Still not? Okay, just next slide. I'll delegate. So what happened was, I became absolutely in love with my emotions. Because when I started to address my emotions through personal development work, and I started to work with someone who helped me to learn and understand what certain emotions meant, why did I feel the way that I did, I was so dedicated that 3 months later, I was off of medication for my depression and my anxiety. I was living my best life. And I was doing so well that I found a business partner And I started my own personal development company purely just teaching people how to be happy based on what I did. I just taught them my formula. Put a few videos on YouTube, and it went viral. And I was booked out for 2 years teaching internationally. And as I started to work with people, I started to notice, isn't it interesting that when we start to address people who have, for example, an ailment, or chronic pain, or anxiety or depression, when we start to tap in a little bit what that person felt at the time, more or less when the issue started, and starting to backtrack and reverse and address the challenges and the trauma, that the symptoms would improve. I mean, greatly improve, whether it's trauma, whether it's an ailment, or chronic pain, or addictions. And what became even more interesting is that I noticed, as I worked with people, and this is after traveling to 43 countries teaching, I noticed, why is it that Sarah in Canada, who has arthritis in her left wrist, and Jody, who's sitting in New Zealand, who has arthritis in her left wrist, why is it that these two people who have nothing in common, completely different cultural backgrounds, completely different diets, yet the trauma and the emotions that they experienced in their life and how they cope with it was the same? How is that possible? And as I continued to document my case studies, as I worked with clients, I started to compile my data together. And this is how I ended up writing this book. It used to be a manual for my workshops to teach my students, if you have pain in your shoulder, go have a look at the book to see what can the underlying emotion potentially be. And this is after working with 7,500 clients. 7,500 clients. And let me tell you, patterns don't lie. It's a very powerful book that I ended up, it was actually, like I said, it was a manual, and one of the students said, well, why don't you just put it in the book? And I'm like, come on. Me an author? Oh, please. And I did. It was one of my first books. 21 books later, this was actually my first book. And this actually has 722 medical ailments and the emotions that impact these ailments. And then asking the right questions, how to help the person improve their quality of life and help them to bring relief from the ailment or the trauma or the stress that they are experiencing. This book is used in hospitals, universities, psychiatrists' office, psychologists, clinicians, hypnotherapists, anyone that's just interested in learning to understand what is the message in their body. Because awareness of a problem is a problem half solved. The other half is now just taking the right action. And the reason why a lot of people struggle to get better is because we don't identify the problem deep enough or clearly. And this is now, and you'll also see here the book, the forewords written by Dr. Parviz Rashvand. He's actually here today, and he's the first registered naturopathic doctor here in the UAE, opening up the doors for so many other people. Dr. Parviz, give us a wave. Very good. Beautiful friendship of 17 years. And so what I learned now, how these trauma and patterns are stored in specific parts of the body. And I thought, well, isn't it interesting? There's a key emotion, but what then happens is that some people experience different other type of emotions, which changes the narrative of the emotions, which then can alter where the issue is going to be felt and stuck in the body. Now, how does that even work? Can I have the next slide? There we go. Can we have the next one? So what I learned was really interesting, because as I worked with people, I noticed as I helped them to release trauma, the body seemed to have a certain algorithm in terms of how it would store these emotions. And I thought, well, if it stores it a certain way, Does that mean that it can be released a certain way? The answer, in my case studies, it happened to be yes. And after I worked with so many people, I noticed that the body needs a specific recipe, a specific algorithm, in order for it to accept change, number one. You're trying to create change. Who here loves change? Who has a positive relationship with change? Great. But now, there's different types of changes. There's different types of changes. Because what I learned to understand that the body is not going to change if it doesn't understand why, where, what, or how. We fear the unknown. It's an instinctive response. So what I learned throughout my case studies and working with people, it is vital for the body to feel safe before it's going to accept any type of change. And this was my personal experience as well. And what made this even more incredible was an experience that I had where I was addressing my own trauma. And the technique was all about talking and, what has happened? Where's this? Where's that? And just talking about what had happened to me kept re-traumatizing me. I did not have the rainbow childhood that some people had. It was very traumatic. And then what this technique did was, as well, they believed that you have to relive trauma in order to heal it. It was a really tough session because I did not expect that. It was so tough that my reaction triggered the therapist and she couldn't get me out of the state that I was in. I went back home and I revisited my method. And I said, how can I help people to heal without needing to talk about the trauma, without needing to remember what had happened, and without needing to relive it? And that is when metaphysical anatomy technique was born. It's a powerful technique that I have now developed that I teach to psychologists, clinicians, and anyone who just wants to improve their quality of life. And what I learned was that we have a field, which is called the electromagnetic field, that the body generates. And within our ecosystem, we have our emotions that's transferred back and forth between the brain, the organs, the body, through neuropeptides as well. This is wonderful research done by Dr. Candace Pert as well. And what I learned when I was working with people is why was it that when I look at someone and I hold a specific intention long enough, that their body responded to that intention? My goodness. It drove me crazy. Why does this work? How does this work? Who here have been in public? You're walking around, maybe you're sitting in a restaurant, sitting in a cafe. You see someone, you cannot see their face, but you can feel something just doesn't feel right. Maybe they're sad, maybe they feel down, maybe they feel a little bit off, maybe they just had a really bad day. Who here has experienced that? Everyone. You had no evidence to feel or understand what that person was feeling, yet somehow you felt what they were feeling to a certain degree, to the point where it changed your physiology in your body, where it caught your attention and you realized, oh wow, I'm feeling different. This is not me now. Oh, something's going on there. And that is when I realized and I thought, can we maybe use that in a controlled, focused way? What will happen then? This is what we would call, energy flows where your focus is, right? There's a data transfer. It's an energetic, but also a very purely instinctive response. Our autonomic nervous system is constantly scanning the environment. It's a purely natural response that we have. There's always data coming back to you. And what I thought, and I asked the question, well, what if we use that same concept, but we just use it in a controlled way? If my body physiology can change by just looking at someone randomly, what is going to happen? when I go in there with the pure intention, knowing and understanding what I want that person's body to do. Wow. This knocked open a whole new door. And this is the technique, MAT, that I've been practicing with all these thousands of clients. It's a beautiful technique and people love it because they don't have to talk about what had happened. Most people don't know why they feel the way that they do, and you don't need to either in order to create lasting change. Because the body holds the story. I don't work with memories. I cannot tell you how many people have come to me and try to heal something that practically didn't happen. Because by the 5th time that you recall a memory, 50% of its validity has changed. I focus on what the body is feeling, the emotions, the sensations. That is always accurate. You know when you're sad. You know when you're upset. You know when you're happy. It's crystal clear. And from that place, we take the body and we help it to feel safe. We give it the resources that it didn't have at the time of certain stressful events that the person might remember. We build the body back up. We don't just go in there and release. I can't tell you how many people have come to me in a state of a healing crisis, because sometimes what people do is when they go through healing work is that they nitpick. Oh, I'll do a little bit of this, I'll do a little bit of that, I'm going to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. There's no real solid commitment to seeing through certain modalities. And so what we're doing is we're giving the body all these different instructions, and the body has its natural capacity to heal. It just needs to be given the right environment. It just needs to be asked the right questions. And so this is where a lot of my incredible case studies also came from, helping people to improve their quality of life. Can I have the next slide? I lost my remote. The next slide, yes. I have an assistant. So something that's really incredible is I noticed, okay, so if emotions can impact us to the point where we can, of course, now have a traumatic response because we have a reaction to a stressful event that we were not necessarily able to overcome for various reasons. And that memory continues to stay in the body. It made me wonder, how many ailments can actually be related to emotions? How many ailments can actually be related to suppressed emotions? Of course, diet plays a role. Medication or reactions to that can play a role. Absolutely. But also to what extent? Why is it that you can put 2 people in an environment, one will get lung cancer and the other one will not? Why is that? That is when I learned to understand the resiliency, the emotional resiliency that we have also has an impact, of course, on the immune system. Experiences that we have in our life is passed down to the next generation. Problems that we had is passed down to the next generation. It's called evolution. See if you can find a solution, because I didn't. Now, what is really interesting is when we look at irritable bowel syndrome as an example, it's a psychosomatic condition. You can go to the doctor, they're going to send you back home. Oh, it's all in your head, it's emotions, it's psychosomatic. Really? Well, isn't that interesting? This is a full-blown medical condition that can sometimes cause people to not get out of bed. It's painful, and it can be a very serious condition as well. Because of emotions? Wow. Well, what is next? And what is so incredible about IBS? Did you know that this is inherited? So now you want to tell me IBS is not really a medical condition, but somehow, what exactly do we inherit then? The emotional predisposition for it. And your environment, triggering that stress, triggers a medical ailment. And that is why when we work with IBS, we just work with emotions. And the first thing that I will do is when I ask someone who has IBS, Talk to me about the hostility that you experienced as a child in your family unit. Stomach is mother, small intestines is family, colon is father. Where's the problem? Your stomach, your digestive system will always tell you that story, right? Depends, are you constipated? We're in hiding mode. A trauma from your family, childhood memories where you felt you needed to hide. You know, when we have the opposite, which could be diarrhea, that's wanting to run away, but you cannot escape. But what we realize is we just feel the symptoms of it. And when I've helped people to just address the emotions, and again, without needing to go back into the story, without needing to feel or relive it, incredible results. Incredible. A lot of people have improved their quality of life. Stroke victims, people who've had arthritis, you name it. There's 722 medical ailments in here. And all of them have had incredible improvements by just addressing emotions. So what I would love to quickly do with you, how much time do I have? Because the timer is not showing on the screen. $15 minutes? Okay, great. So I would love for everyone to hold up your left hand. And hold it comfortably, like just nice next to your shoulder. Now, I would like you to look at your left hand. I want you to look at the lines. I'm glad we have time for this exercise. I want you to look at the palm of your hand. Think of absolutely nothing. Just look at the palm of your hand. And we're going to do this for about a minute. Now, for some of you, you might start to feel a tingling, or that something suddenly feels a little bit different. You can't necessarily put your finger on it, but something feels different. Most people describe it as a buzz, or a very slight tingling. Some people's hands become hot. Now do it with the right hand. Keep your left hand here, switch your full focus and awareness to your right hand. Just looking at the palm of your hand, not really thinking of anything. Your full focus and awareness is there. Even just look at the center of it. Now, some of you might start to feel tingling in the other hand. Some people's hands get really hot. Some people feel there's just this random cord between their hands. Who felt just ever so slightly, even if it's just 1%, just a little bit of a tingling? Yeah? Why are you so shy? Yes, yes, very good. Excellent, very good. Thank you. Now we're going to switch gears. I want you to bring your full focus and awareness to the frontal lobe, so the front part of your head. Close your eyes. So your full focus and awareness is now at the frontal lobes. Imagine that you're concentrating all your awareness, all your focus there. And notice as you do that, some of you might feel it feels a little bit congested. Some people explain it as feeling that there's a bit of a band around their head, or just maybe ever so slightly a tightness. Can you feel it? It doesn't feel empty, it feels maybe a little bit full. Now I would like you to imagine your full focus and awareness remains there at your frontal lobes. Now, expand it. Expand it, expand it, expand it as far out as you can. And notice the relief. Notice how light it now feels, feeling the difference. And gently open your eyes. This is an example of controlled focus. The one where you saw someone in public and just randomly felt a little bit maybe off because you felt what was happening for them. That's what I call uncontrolled focus. We didn't really intend to look for something. Now, what I just taught you is what I realized working with all my clients during my case studies, that this is at least 60% element to the MAT technique. Because what I learned, what happens is when emotions are constantly felt, it's constantly running through the body, through the electromagnetic field, through the neuropeptides. We know and understand how emotions can change water molecules. Wow. You're 70% water. What do you think is happening to your body? And what I learned was, okay, so now I'm going to give specific instructions to this person's body to heal and release. And you know what happened? Exactly that. It released stress and emotions in the body where they identified the emotion. So whatever your challenge is, my conversation will be, well, okay, how does that make you feel? Not back then, right now. And where in your body do you feel that? And that's it. It sounds quite simple. You know, we are raised to feel that success is a struggle. Everything in life has to be hard. But what I learned in my journey is that, and that was my mindset as well, healing can actually be really easy. If you have the right person in front of you to guide you and support you, it absolutely can. Can I have the next slide? Thank you. And so this was my challenge that I had with emotions. Emotions, I have a love-hate relationship with it. Of course, this is why I started my career. This is why I have a business. Is because of my relationship with my emotions and helping other people to understand theirs. But here I was, just before I turned 29, living my best life, traveling the world, teaching, speaking, and I had a stress-induced heart attack. I'm teaching people how to help themselves, and here I collapsed myself. What I overlooked and what I didn't realize is that I confused thinking that I have eustress, which is called positive stress, when we have a positive association with stress, meaning we feel motivated by it. My eustress covered my underlying anger and belief that I have to fight for everything in life. Well, I don't know about you, but it's hard to be happy if you're fighting the whole time, isn't it? I couldn't find my happiness because I was fighting for it. You can't feel peace when you're fighting for it. And I was in the hospital in that bed. And when you start to negotiate for your life, let me tell you, emotions didn't ask for respect, it commanded it. And I was listening. Because I was lying in that bed thinking, if I don't make this, because I was so out of breath, I felt that every breath was going to be my last. Thinking someone is going to go and enjoy this $1 million house that I just bought in the French Polynesia Islands. Someone else is going to wear my clothing. Someone else is going to empty my bank account. And here I am with a heart attack in a hospital bed, angry and fighting for everything that I want. And I couldn't appreciate it. I couldn't take it in because I was angry the whole time. Because everything had to be fought for. And that comes from my childhood. So the doctor came in to the hospital. I was in a third world country. He threw a white box of pills on the bed and he said, "Get out of my hospital. You don't have a heart problem. You have a goddamn stress problem." They discharged me that same day. No grace. And I changed my life around. I quit my business. I walked away from my business partner, sold the house, 2 suitcases, and I moved to Bali. And I started again. And I started my second business. In the backyard of a Balinese family, with not a lot of money in my bank account, I might add. I mean, I really walked away from everything. Of course, I did the right thing by everyone involved, but I needed a clean start. I needed new, fresh associations, and I needed a new environment. And I started new. 3 months later, worked on myself, got myself back on track, and I finally built my success and my happiness on a foundation of real, true happiness, and not fighting for it, but feeling worthy of it. It was a big lesson that I learned. I would not exchange it for anything, but I do not want to have that again, that's for sure. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is where I learned and understood the power of emotions, not just talking to people about it, but having firsthand experienced this. And so some just case studies that I was helping my clients with, like I had Jim who had lower chronic back pain. I was teaching in Sydney. He did not believe in the work that I was doing, so I can't even say it was placebo. He was there because he lost a bet, which was actually really funny. And I said to him, come sit down. And it was filmed as well. So we did a session on his lower back, 10 out of 10 pain. He had it for 13 years. And he walked out of there 45 minutes later with no pain and thinking, okay, well, let's see if it comes back. I always give a client 7-day integration. 7-day integrations every single time. Day 7 is the magic number. I've learned that is what takes the body the amount of time to fully integrate, cognitively, emotionally, spiritually, and the nervous system as well. It's not just on the first day. And 3 months later, I was teaching in Sydney again, and he came back in there with this big bouquet of flowers, and I had no idea what was going on, and he just said, my back pain never came back. I fired my chiropractor, I'm doing great, I bought a motorbike, and he's living his best life. All because we addressed him trying to compare himself to his father. I have to be like my father to financially provide for my family. That's lower back for men. Then I had Lily. She had chronic fatigue syndrome, and she had it for, I think, about 5 years. It was very severe. She was in bed. She could barely leave the house. She couldn't remember basic conversations. So her family booked a session, and I realized that she was carrying the weight of her family. She felt responsible for everyone. We addressed that responsibility in one session. The chronic fatigue went away. After 7-day integration, she was still doing great. 6 months later, she's still living a perfectly normal life. All because of emotion. And then I had Jonathan. He had very severe anxiety. I've seen a lot of people with anxiety, but he was the type, he couldn't sit still. He was, always, fumbling with his hand and, eye contact, very stressed. So we worked on the anxiety, which also had heart palpitations. So it was a very intense experience for him. And he had no idea why. So we tapped into the body, and we gave the body a voice. Long story short, this is a case study I want to share with you because it blew me away. This came from the anxiety that he felt from his mother when she was comforting him as a child. Holding the child, and here's why, holding the child on your chest, heart to heart. In MIT, I call this trauma transfer. Have you ever had a family member and you just felt something is off and you keep thinking about that family member, or something is not right? There's communication, there's cellular communication. And that child's nervous system is looking for what? It's looking for comfort. And the mother had postpartum depression. She struggled with being a mother. She hated it. She could not adapt to it. And her anxiety and her stress of having to do everything, being stress deprived, transferred to him. We released it, and it never came back. And he's off of his medication. Can I have the next slide? Janice had migraines, severe migraines. She was on disability leave, the type where you switch off all the lights and you're under the blanket and you have a bucket next to the bed because her stomach couldn't handle the pain. Addressed her unresolved anger towards her mother. And the migraines never came back. And she's running her own business now very successfully. And she's doing great. Michelle struggled with infertility. She was 35 years old. No medical tests. There were no problems. Her husband did all the medical tests. There were no problems. Years they couldn't conceive. Her body rejected becoming a mother because her mother died when she was 9. And she had to take full responsibility for the entire household. So if I become a mother again, it brought up all the subconscious trauma and stress. I don't want that again. Her body said no. We healed the trauma, resolved it. A month later, she conceived. A year and a half later, she had a happy accident and they had child number 2. And something about chronic pain that I have learned is, and I know a lot of you is probably going to feel, I'm going to get some psychic attacks here, but I'm joking. Chronic pain. Would you believe me if I told you the reason why people struggle with chronic pain, from all these case studies that I did, is suppressed anger. It's suppressed anger. I call it silent anger. Most people don't even know that it's there because it was never safe to express it. It's a fight response combined with a freeze response. And where the pain is, it's going to tell you exactly who and what in relationship you feel angry and powerless to. It will tell you exactly. Can I have the next slide? There's many other beautiful case studies that I'll just really briefly cover also, apart just from mine, which I just shared with you now. There was a lady, 40 years old. She lost her eyesight for 2 years because someone accidentally sprayed cleaning spray in her face. This is a well-documented case study. Her eyesight came back after 2 years by addressing the emotional stress that she had in relationship to how her role and her family changed when her children left the house. There was another case study of broken heart syndrome. Another man, he had a heart attack because his wife passed away and he couldn't cope and deal with the stress. And the way that he healed was as a result of learning and understanding what the emotions were and releasing that. Another doctor told his cancer patient that you will die in 4 months because you have an aggressive tumor. This man died 3 months later, 1 month before the final time. And when they did the autopsy, it was a benign tumor. He died because he was told that he was going to die. That is the power of your emotions. That's the power that our emotions and our thoughts can have on our body, causing it to even shut down. There was another guy, Frederick, 51, he was diagnosed by his doctors with ALS, and he refused to believe it. He absolutely refused. And he did show the symptoms. And after several tests, it came that he did not have it. He was misdiagnosed. So luckily, he continued to live his best life because he had the right mindset for it. And there you actually will see the letter. It's the doctor's letter right there. Rapidly worsening. I don't anticipate recovery, unfortunately. That's the power of our mind. Can I have the next slide? There we go. So this is my journey that I wanted to share with you. If you would like, you can just scan that QR code, enter your email address, and I will be in your inbox in a few minutes. You'll receive all information from me as well. So I do hope that you learned a lot and that I tickled your curiosity a little bit. And thank you so much for having me. Your body is talking. Are you listening?
That was a really, really powerful session on the power of emotions. I mean, very, very insightful and eye-opening at the same time. All right, we'll throw open for the questions, but owing to time constraint, we'll just stick to 5 questions. So, all right.
Can I just say, wow. I've always thought, because I'm a holistic fertility expert and I help with infertility and I use acupuncture and cupping, and I've always said, and my family have always said, I just mess about and then they just get pregnant. And I really feel that. And now I'm thinking, actually, I am subconsciously putting that focus in, which I actually didn't realize, so I'm very intrigued. I would love to speak to you later on. But what I feel is that I deal with a lot of women with womb conditions and infertility. And I feel that the emotion of unworthiness, of fear and uncertainty, these 3 have always just coming up and showing up. And how can I help my clients to actually become a better therapist for them?
I love your question, and it's a very good question. Firstly, what I would do in that case is, when we look at the womb, when we look at the reproductive area for women, I always ask them, how was your relationship with your mother? What are expectations that have not been fulfilled? This is a really, really big challenge that I'm seeing. And women whose creativity that have been suppressed, go study this, go do that, not being able to follow what they really truly wanted to do, it's actually held in the womb. And so when we start to look at, if you have cysts also in the womb, which can also be a challenge as a result of infertility, now you're looking at someone or a woman who is very much stuck in a fight response towards life, having been taught that I have to fight my way forward. Right? We cannot drop into that soft femininity because it's not safe. So it's women who have infertility challenges. They're very much stuck in their masculinity, a very strong instinctive fight response. And so what you can do to help them is to learn how to feel safe, to ease back into femininity, because I can guarantee you they do not have a positive relationship with it. Because being feminine is the most beautiful, graceful state that the woman can be in, because that's where we love, nurture, that's where we also raise children. To help them to feel safe with being a woman and to accept that and to understand and see the strengths and the qualities that can come from being it. Thank you for that great question.
Hello. Hi, thank you so much for this wonderful session. I have a question, right? So they always say that you end up attracting the same set of people, right? Let's say, for example, there was a set of group that you really didn't want to connect for a very long time, and then you kind of move away from them. But there's always an instant that you end up meeting the same set of people and the same set of mindset. Is it something, how does emotion play a very critical role here? Is it that we attract these set of people, or is it something that comes from maybe your generations or your mother, or do you have some idea around that?
So your question, I just want to make sure, because for some reason I can't hear your question well over the speakers. So your question was people's emotions and?
No, my question was, we always attract the same set of people, right? So how does emotion play a very critical role here? Is it something that we are thinking that we want to be with a similar set of people? Because progressively when we look at, we really want to move away from certain set of group or a set of people, right?
Yeah.
But then you end up meeting the same set of people wherever you go. How does emotion play a critical role, and where do we break this chain?
I love that question. Thank you so much for asking it. So I'm going to get a bit personal here. I wrote an autobiography about my book, so I'm quite comfortable to talk about my life. So I'm going to use myself as an example. My father was a drug addict, he was an alcoholic, and he was a clinically diagnosed sociopath, and I was the only child. So it was a really tough upbringing. So what do you think regulated my nervous system? From a very young age was abuse. He was a very violent, volatile person. And that is exactly what I attracted in partners and in friendships. And when I started to teach my nervous system that it's actually safe to be with people who are calm, because I didn't trust people who were calm. I'm sitting and I'm thinking, what is your next move going to be? If you're aggressive, at least it's more predictable. It didn't regulate my nervous system. Consciously, I understood it. But there was this magnetic pull to people who would end up causing me to feel the same way as my father did. And that is exactly the exact same pattern that I found when I was working with these thousands of people, especially with people who have autoimmune problems. Fearing people, that's meant to make you feel loved. So does that answer your question? Okay. Thank you for asking that.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for your talk. I really appreciated it. I'm a mental health expert and I do work a lot with beliefs. And I can totally share what you said regarding, I would love to have a baby, but it doesn't work. And what comes in my personal practice quite often is that there are conflicting beliefs. Something like, I would like to get pregnant, but at the same time, I don't want to gain weight, which is a bit paradox, you know what I mean? So this is what happens quite often. What I would be interested in, you said you use a special technique to erase this limiting beliefs when you talk about chronic pain and so on. So I'm wondering, how do you practically do it? You know, what tools do you use? Thank you.
That's a great question. So a very elevator speech answer. So that's why I actually developed my own technique, metaphysical anatomy technique, because I couldn't find something that would get me to where I wanted to be personally. And so this is the technique that I use now, where someone will come to me and I'll ask them, what is the issue? So just very brief, to the point where the person will say, okay, so we're going to name the issue A. I don't even know what we're working on, right? So some people there's so much trauma there that they don't want to talk about it. And if I do know, great. But what the focus then is, I will tell them, I want you just to think about that issue A. How does it make you feel? Okay, great. So now we know how it makes you feel. Where in your body do you feel tension or stress rising up as you're thinking about this issue? And then I write that down. I take these notes, and then I ask them, what inner resource would have helped you to at least feel, just even if it's just 1%, more balanced and coherent within yourself before, during, or after that situation A? Now the person might say, to feel supported. Okay, great. And then I ask them, what do you hate feeling the most? Or what do you dislike feeling the most about situation A? Because we have a response to trauma, and then we have this narrative in relationship to the trauma. So you're dealing with two issues. You're not just dealing with one issue. And the narrative that we have around the trauma is often what causes people to not heal. I call that the lock. That is what locks it in. There's the conflict that you're talking about, right? There we go. And then we will go into the MAT technique and algorithm and instill the positive resource, because when you take something out, when you collapse something, you can't just leave the body as it is. You need to give it a resource back, right? Because that's to avoid a healing crisis. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your great question.
Hi. My name is Madhvi, and I'm very much into preventive wellness. Okay, so I have two questions, if I may, quick questions. One is around, it's a beautiful, beautiful presentation. So you talked about, breaking the pattern, like you spoke about your own childhood and the kind of partners you would attract. That's pretty much very practical, So how do you break that pattern? Logically, consciously, we all know we need to break it. So what is, if there is one quick tool that you can, something like administer or tell people, this is what you practice to break the pattern in your life, what would that be according to you?
So I would teach the nervous system how to feel safe in the right way.
Okay. So, consciously you think that will work? Because people would know that is what they have to do, but it will be difficult. It is difficult for people to actually, practice in their daily lives.
I think I'm trying to understand what your question is. So what you're looking for is a quick fix?
A tool, not a fix. something that they would do so that they'll break away from that pattern. They would understand that this is something wrong and this is because I have had a bad childhood, and it's a very common pattern among people. So what is that one quick tool?
So, okay, great. So this is the exercise that we did earlier.
Okay.
Where in your body do you feel that stress right now? Right? And even if you feel an attraction to something and you know it's bad, where in your body do you feel the desire for it?
Awesome.
Yeah? Where do you feel the desire for it? It flips the other way as well. It's not just about negativity. And then you connect to it. And then you do the expansion process that you did with your frontal lobes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I do a lot of, chakra work, energy work, and connecting nervous system to the human body and anatomy.
Beautiful.
Thank you for that.
Love
and
it.
my second question is around, it's more than a question, it's contemplation, and I just want your thought around it. Like infertility. When women come to me, people come to me saying that all the records are perfectly fine. So I ask them, when was the last time you created something? Because we are running after numbers, we are running after performance, simple drawing or sketching or singing. If you do not create something as simple as it, how can you create life, which is magnificent? So I feel people have to really stay connected to their creativity, to bring a life to earth, because it's much beyond the sexual process, it's a beautiful creation. So I just want your thought on
So
that.
there's in most cases, there's stress connected and associated with being creative.
Yeah.
And another thing also, to just add to the fertility challenges, I've seen also women's body completely block their fertility if there's financial stress. If there's financial stress and the body doesn't feel safe to
Bring
recreate,
the life,
it's not going to happen. And I've had a situation that drove me crazy. I had two couples for 10 years that were in their 30s. They could not conceive. And what I found out was that they had that their mother and their father, one was Christian and then the other family side was Jewish. And there was a really big unresolved conflict that was inherited. And when we resolved this family conflict, they conceived. I don't know. They didn't really believe in the work that I did. And I thought, let's just give it a go.
It's beautiful. Awesome work you're doing. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you so much. Just a quick question for the sake of the argument. How do you deal with the secondary gain?
Secondary gain. So the biggest question that I ask people, and I call this my $1 million question. You can stop going to events to deal with self-sabotage and secondary gains. I ask people, what in your life will change if we heal this today that you don't feel safe to change? It's a big question that can open up a really big challenge. Some people are very conscious of what secondary gains can be. I had a lady who had breast cancer. Her daughter called me, come please see her. I did. And I sat down and I said, let's start the session. And she said, Evette, I don't want you to help me. And she said, if this breast cancer goes away, I will never see my daughter and my grandchildren as much as I do now. So she was conscious of the secondary gain. But if we look at secondary gain, this is a gentle question to ask. And people are going to sit there sometimes for 10 minutes not being able to answer you. But just be the compassionate witness. I promise you the answer will come every single time. That's such a great question. Thank you for asking.
All right, well, with that, we'll just end the questions for now, owing to time constraint. But please feel free to connect with her. I think she's given us a fresh perspective on emotional management and emotional well-being. So let's give her a loud round of applause. Thank you so much, ma'am.